The birthday cake sat untouched on my dining room table while my father stood at the head, pointing at a hand-drawn floor plan like a general commanding troops. My mother beamed beside him, her 60th birthday celebration transforming into something I hadn't anticipated. A family meeting about redistributing the rooms in what they believed was our family home. Melissa gets the master bedroom obviously, Dad said, circling the largest room on his sketch. She and Brad need space for the twins. The nursery can go in the current guest room. My sister Melissa smiled triumphantly from the couch, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. Her husband Brad nodded along, already mentally measuring for furniture. And Mom and Dad, you two should take the downstairs bedroom, Melissa continued. Much easier with your knees, Mom. Plus you'll be right there to help with night feedings. I stood in the kitchen doorway, wine glass in hand, watching my family redistribute my 3-bedroom house like pieces on a Monopoly board. Nobody had looked at me in 15 minutes. What about Emma? My Aunt Carol finally asked, glancing in my direction. Oh, she'll be fine in the converted garage, Dad said dismissively. It is heating now. Very cozy. Besides, Emma's barely home anyway with her little freelance projects. My little freelance projects generated $340,000 last year as a software consultant for medical device companies, but nobody had ever asked about my work. Melissa's job as a dental hygienist, which she'd quit 2 years ago, was still discussed at every gathering as if she were a healthcare hero. When are we thinking for the move? Brad asked, pulling out his phone calendar. 2 weeks. Melissa looked at our parents. That gives us time to pack up the apartment before the lease ends. Perfect, Mom said. And Emma dear, you'll need to clear out those spare bedrooms this weekend. Melissa's baby furniture is being delivered next Thursday. I took a slow sip of wine. Is that right? Don't use that tone, Dad warned. This house has always been about family. Your grandmother left it for all of us, not just you. The lie was so confident, so completely believed that I almost admired it. My grandmother had died 8 years ago. She'd left the house to my parents with the explicit instruction that it be sold and the proceeds divided between Melissa and me. Instead, my parents had moved in, stopped making mortgage payments, and nearly lost it to foreclosure 4 years ago. I'd bought it at auction for $127,000. Paid cash. My parents never knew because the paperwork listed an LLC I'd created, Hartwell Properties. They assumed some investment company bought it and graciously let them stay as tenants. For 4 years I'd paid property taxes, insurance and maintenance while charging them nothing in rent. When I'd quietly moved in 2 years ago, after my Seattle apartment lease ended, they treated it like I was the one being given a charitable place to stay. Emma, are you even listening? Mom snapped. I asked if you'd help Melissa paint the nursery next weekend. I heard you. And? I'll have to check my calendar. Melissa rolled her eyes. She probably has some very important Zoom call. Emma, this is family. Your nieces or nephews are more important than whatever app you're debugging. Medical device firmware, actually. For surgical equipment. But you're right. Family is important. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. still works. Bring the documentation. This is what I mean, Dad said, turning to the others. Emma's always been in her own world. Never really invested in family the way Melissa is. Hold up. So it's settled, Mom announced, cutting a slice of her birthday cake. 2 weeks from Saturday we all move into our new arrangements. Emma, the garage is actually quite nice. You might even prefer the privacy. Exactly. See, you're coming around. Mom handed cake to everyone except me. Melissa, we should start shopping for nursery furniture this week. Actually, Melissa interrupted, I was thinking Emma should contribute to the nursery fund. Since she's living here rent-free and all. The audacity was breathtaking. That's fair, Dad agreed immediately. What do you think, Emma? $2,000 should cover the basics. $2,000. For your nieces or nephews, Melissa added. Unless you don't care about them? Emma makes good money, Dad said. She can afford it. It's the least she can do considering she's been living here without contributing to household expenses. I'd replaced the roof last year, $18,000. New HVAC system, $12,000. The kitchen renovation they'd requested, $31,000. But none of that counted because they didn't know about it. When you say, household expenses, I asked carefully, what exactly do you mean? Utilities, property taxes, insurance, Brad listed. The basics of maintaining a home. Well, obviously the landlord pays property taxes, Melissa said impatiently. We mean the day-to-day stuff. Mom and Dad have been covering everything while you just exist here. My mother nodded vigorously. We've never asked you for rent, Emma. We've been more than generous. Incredibly generous, I agreed. Something in my tone made Aunt Carol look at me sharply, but everyone else missed it entirely. Good, then you'll contribute to the nursery fund, Dad said. And Emma will need you out of the master bedroom by next Friday. Melissa wants to start setting up early. Melissa needs that bathroom, Mom added. Pregnancy is hard on the bladder. Brad pulled out a measuring tape. Mind if I take some measurements now? I want to see if our California king will fit. Where exactly do you think my furniture is going? Storage, Melissa suggested. Or sell it. Most of it's pretty old anyway. My old furniture included a $6,000 custom desk system and a $4,000 ergonomic chair for my home office setup. But Melissa had never been in my actual bedroom. She'd only seen the garage conversion where I'd put a futon for appearances. This is all happening very fast, Aunt Carol tried again. Nonsense, Mom said. Family shouldn't need lengthy negotiations. And the landlord won't mind 4 additional occupants? I asked. The landlord, Dad said irritably, is an investment company that hasn't bothered us in 4 years. They clearly don't care who lives here as long as someone does. Hartwell Properties, I said. What? The landlord. Hartwell Properties, LLC. How do you know that? Mom asked suspiciously. It's on the property tax records. Public information. Brad was already measuring the hallway. Babe, our dresser might not fit unless we move Emma's bookshelf. Just put it in the garage with her other stuff, Melissa said carelessly. Emma, you don't mind, right? Family comes first. Family does come first, I agreed. The doorbell rang. Everyone looked up, confused. Who's that? Mom asked. Emma, are you expecting someone? Yes, actually. I walked to the door. My attorney, Patricia Chin, stood on the porch with her leather briefcase and perfectly tailored suit. She'd been my lawyer for 6 years, since I'd first started making serious money and needed someone to handle contracts and property acquisitions. Miss Hartwell, she greeted me formally. Thank you for having me. Miss Hartwell. Melissa's voice came from behind me. Who calls Emma Miss Hartwell? I stepped aside to let Patricia in. Everyone, this is Patricia Chin, my attorney. Patricia, this is my family. The room went completely silent. Revelation. Patricia set her briefcase on my dining room table, right next to the birthday cake, and smiled pleasantly at the assembled family. I apologize for interrupting the celebration. Emma asked me to come by to clear up some confusion about living arrangements. Living arrangements? Dad stood up slowly. What's Emma's lawyer doing here? I'm here, Patricia said, pulling documents from her briefcase, to clarify property ownership and discuss illegal eviction procedures. Illegal eviction? Brad laughed nervously. Nobody's being evicted. Actually, several people attempted to evict Emma from her own home approximately 30 minutes ago. Patricia laid out the first document, a deed with the county seal clearly visible. This is the property deed for this address, recorded 4 years ago. The owner is listed as Hartwell Properties, LLC. We know that, Mom said impatiently. The investment company that owns the house. Patricia smiled. Hartwell Properties is not an investment company. It's a single-member LLC created for privacy purposes. The sole member and owner is Emma Christine Hartwell. The silence was absolute. That's not possible, Dad finally said. Emma doesn't have that kind of money. Ms. Hartwell purchased this property at auction for $127,000 in cash 4 years ago, after the previous owners, Richard and Susan Hartwell, your parents, defaulted on the mortgage and faced foreclosure. Mom's face went white. You bought our house. My house, I corrected quietly. I bought the house I now own. But we never knew, Dad stammered. You assumed it was unrelated to me. I looked at Patricia. Show them the tax records. She laid out 4 years of property tax payments, all from my business account. insurance documents, maintenance receipts for major repairs, all with my signature. The roof repair last year, Patricia noted. $18,000. HVAC replacement, $12,000. Kitchen renovation, $31,000. All paid by Ms. Hartwell from personal funds. Melissa was shaking her head. This doesn't make sense. Emma's a freelancer. She can't afford. Ms. Hartwell's consulting company grossed $340,000 last year, Patricia interrupted. Her net worth is approximately $1.2 million, mostly in property investments and retirement accounts. Aunt Carol let out a low whistle. That's not possible, Brad said. She lives in a garage. She lives in the master bedroom, Patricia corrected. The garage conversion was set up as guest space. Ms. Hartwell has been quietly residing in the primary suite for 2 years while allowing her parents to believe they were tenants with permission to occupy the home rent-free. Why would you do that? Mom whispered. Because you're my parents, I said simply. You needed a place to live. I could afford to help. But you let us think. I let you think whatever made you comfortable. I turned to Patricia. Show them the rest. She pulled out more documents. These are proposed tenancy agreements Ms. Hartwell drafted, giving Richard and Susan Hartwell permission to occupy the property rent-free, subject to basic conditions. No property damage, no illegal activity, and no attempts to claim ownership rights. We never signed any agreement, Dad said. Correct. Which means you've been occupying the property at Ms. Hartwell's discretion as family members, not legal tenants. Which brings us to today's issue. Patricia's voice turned cold. Approximately 40 minutes ago, multiple family members conspired to illegally evict the property owner from her own home and redistribute her private living space without consent. We didn't evict anyone, Melissa protested. We were just making family plans. You announced that Ms. Hartwell would be moved to the garage, her personal bedroom would be taken by you, and her possessions would be relocated or disposed of. That constitutes attempted illegal eviction. This is insane, Brad said. We're family. A discussion where you measured rooms and set move-in dates without the property owner's knowledge or consent. Patricia stacked the documents neatly. Which brings me to why I'm here. Ms. Hartwell asked me to make several things clear. Everyone looked at me. First, I said, no one is moving in. Melissa, Brad, you need to find your own housing. Your apartment lease ending is not my emergency. Emma, Mom started. Second, Mom and Dad, you can continue living here under the original arrangement. You pay nothing, but you also don't make decisions about my property. After everything we've done for you? Dad's voice cracked. I've put a roof over yours for 4 years without asking for anything in return. We're even. Patricia checked her watch. Ms. Hartwell has asked me to prepare several documents. First, formal written notice that Richard and Susan Hartwell are permitted guests with no ownership rights. Second, cease and desist letters for Melissa and Brad Cortland, prohibiting any attempts to establish residency. You're seriously lawyering up against your own sister? Melissa sobbed. I'm protecting my property from people who tried to take it without asking. Resolution. They left in stages. Brad and Melissa first, her sobs echoing down the driveway. Aunt Carol gave me a long look and a small nod before following them out. My parents remained sitting on the couch like statues. Patricia organized her documents. I'll email you the formal versions by tomorrow morning. Once your parents sign the guest agreement, everything will be legally documented. Thank you, Patricia. After she left, I turned to face my parents. Mom spoke first. You really own this house? Yes. For 4 years? Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have changed anything? Would you have treated me differently if you'd known? The silence was answer enough. What happens now? Dad asked. Now you read the agreement Patricia sends. You sign it. You continue living here rent-free as long as you respect that this is my property. And Melissa? Melissa figures out her own housing situation like every other adult. When did you become so cold? Mom asked. I'm not cold. I'm clear. There's a difference. I picked up a plate of abandoned birthday cake. I would have helped Melissa if she'd asked. Co-signed a lease, helped with deposits, given her furniture. But she didn't ask. She demanded. She tried to take. Because she thought it was family property, Dad said weakly. Because you told her it was family property. You lied to everyone, including yourselves, because it was easier than admitting you'd lost Grandma's house and your daughter had to buy it to keep you from being homeless. The truth hung in the air. How long have you known about us losing the house? Mom asked. I got the foreclosure notice 4 years ago. You'd listed me as an emergency contact on the original mortgage. The bank called me when payments stopped. I set down the cake. I could have let it go to auction to strangers. Dad, I bought it. I let you stay. I asked for nothing. Why? Dad's voice cracked. Because you're my parents. Because family means something to me even when it apparently doesn't mean the same thing to you. Finally, Mom stood. We should go to bed. It's been a lot. They disappeared upstairs. I cleaned up the birthday cake mess alone, like I'd cleaned up so many messes they'd never known about. The property taxes they'd forgotten. The insurance they'd let lapse. The repairs they'd ignored. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. You've destroyed this family. I deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from Aunt Carol. That took courage. I'm proud of you. Kept that one. The house was quiet as I walked through it. My house, my investment, my home. I'd bought it to save my parents from their own poor decisions. I'd hidden the truth to spare their pride. And they'd repaid me by trying to give it away to my sister. Tomorrow they'd wake up and face the reality that their daughter, the quiet one, the dismissed one, the one they'd tried to relocate to a garage, owned everything they'd taken for granted. Tomorrow, Melissa would start apartment hunting with a budget that reflected reality rather than entitlement. Tomorrow, my parents would sign an agreement acknowledging that I'd been supporting them for years. But tonight I had my house to myself. My space. My property. I opened my laptop and checked my email. 3 new client contracts, all 6 figures. Another conference speaking invitation. A consulting firm in Boston wanting to discuss partnership. My little freelance projects were doing just fine. And my family was learning a lesson about assumptions, entitlement, and the danger of underestimating the quiet daughter who'd been secretly keeping them afloat all along.